Yeah. So I'm swordsmankirby, and this is Kirby's Adventure. It was the first Kirby game to feature copy abilities, and was one of the last couple of NES games. So let me just reset. I'm locally recording in the off chance I PB. Thanks for luck, all. Alright, so let's get started in 3, 2, 1, go. I don't know why I pressed start or space as if I'm spinning. So the first thing I'm going to do here is to set up a mix. I'll try to do it first and then explain it. Alright, good. So if you inhale 2 enemies with an ability, then it starts doing this thing called a mix, which is sort of this roulette wheel that goes through all the abilities. And the one I want is Tornado, because as you can see, the movement's really fast with it. And selecting a power usually is a 4-frame window for these mixes, and depending on which 2 enemies you inhale, like the relative order is always the same. Like it goes in a cycle of the same powers, but the starting point depends on, I believe in this game it's the second enemy that you inhale. And so by inhaling those 2 beam enemies, I know that the third ability along this wheel is going to be Tornado. And Tornado works in, there are a couple of things to say about Tornado. It goes on for, like, I guess, like a fixed amount of time, kind of. And you can, the only thing you can really do is control left and right. Whoops. Bad. And by pressing B, you can make it rise, and letting go of B, you cause it to fall. And this game really stretched the NES, so there's a lot of places where you have a bunch of enemies gonna lag a lot. And I would say one of the big optimizations in this game is lag reduction. So on one hand, if you notice, like if I hit an enemy, it sort of stops Kirby from moving for a little bit. But at the same time, if there are too many enemies on the screen, then it's going to start to lag. So it's sort of this balance between these 2 conflicting conditions where you do want to not have very many enemies on the screen, but you also can't afford to hit all of them, otherwise you're going to be losing a lot of time to what's called hit lag. One other thing about these goal games, every frame takes like a very different amount of time for Kirby to finish the goal game. And of course you want to be as early as possible. Alright, neat strat for these mini bosses. But there's one frame in, like, with, oh whoops. I need that. Oh shoot. Alright, I'll finish the level and then try to find another enemy to use. The third frame out of the first 5 is really slow, and so we want to avoid that one if we can. I have actually no idea how to do this part without without Tornado, so we're gonna go without it. This is very slow. Alright, I think I'm going to go back into the first level and try to do the mix again. Alright, so PB is already dead. Nice. But before people start doing this mix, which... like I said, it was a 4-frame window. Alright, whatever. People used to not use Tornado at all in the first world, so this used to look very different, but Tornado, I think, saves probably somewhere like 20 seconds at least. And we're actually going to hold on to Tornado for quite a while in the beginning of this run. The Kirby-looking enemy there is called Scarfy. You want to avoid hitting them as much as possible because they have a really laggy death animation where they explode. So maybe I should have just picked up this tornado enemy, these tornado enemies I just killed, but whatever. I promise there will be other abilities in this game. I'd say one of the more difficult things in the first two worlds to optimize is how to do these mini boss fights with Tornado. Oh, alright, so about sliding in this game, it works very differently from like pretty much every other Kirby game. You want to slide as close to the edge as possible, so each frame you're like on the ground you lose speed. And when you're in the air, you don't lose any speed at all, so you preserve whatever like the fastest sliding speed you can get. Alright, so this is the no major glitches category, which perhaps surprisingly out of bounds is not considered a major glitch. There are other glitches, for example like a credits warp type glitch, or the glitch that allows you to keep UFO like pretty much indefinitely. Those are the ones that are considered major and sort of game breaking. But we allow out of bounds for this category. Those things which some people call like arenas, or like Meta Knight fights, are sometimes a little bit tricky to optimize because they're one of the few instances like outside of like bosses where things take more than one hit to kill. Most enemies will take, like you just hit them and they die, but for those, some of those enemies have 2 health, which makes it a little bit trickier. I'm actually really bad at that fight, so I just did like some really simple thing that's not optimal. And when you slide and you get this fast speed, to preserve it, so in the air you don't lose any of the speed, so you keep going fast, but then when you're on the ground you want to try to jump, like bunny hop, the entire time to preserve as much speed as possible. Each frame you're on the ground, you lose a little bit of speed. Oops, this is not good. One strange thing about slopes in this game, with regards to Tornado, which doesn't happen in other Kirby games, is that for some reason your Tornado shortens when you hit like an upward slope. I'm not really sure why that is. Alright, so this is a super laggy room. And the game intends for you to get these high jump enemies and break through all these blocks, but we want to keep Tornado, so we do this really slow thing where we just break the blocks one by one. In this game, Tornado can't break blocks. So that distinguishes it from, like, for example, Squeak Squad, where it's used a lot. Alright, this is Paint Roller, or as some people like to call it, Paint Troller. In this game, so there's a remake, Nightmare in Dreamland. which this version of the boss is a lot more random. But in this one, it'll always go to the top right corner, so with 3 tornadoes, you can always pretty consistently kill it. Alright, we're almost done with tornado for now. So in, I want to say like late 2012 to like mid 2014, this category had a lot of development, and then it sort of stagnated for a while. And during that time, they didn't have the tornado mix at the beginning, even though that strategy was known for a really long time. Then later in 2015, some runners like this Japanese runner named Yubi and the current world record holder Race Out started adding new things to the run, and in particular a bunch of new mixes. Okay, so this is a simple mix here. By combining these 3 enemies and just letting the mix wheel run out, you always land on UFO. And so UFO is that power that I mentioned earlier with the glitch that allows you to keep it indefinitely. This weapon is this ability is so overpowered that the developers made you get rid of it at the end of the level, which you'll see here. And it's because you can just like take out bosses really quickly like this and just leave. And so now you see, like, now I don't have the UFO anymore, but there's a glitch that allows you to keep it indefinitely. Oops. Alright, so this is high jump. It works a lot differently than the remake version, so if you played Nightmare on Dreamland. You can only activate it from the ground. And you can cancel it in the air by pressing D again, and unlike Nightmare on Dreamland, that doesn't do damage in this game. So usually that's not really that big a difference. Really, it's the fact that you can't use in the air. And if you fall from too high, for example, if you use like the full high jump height, then you'll face plant, and that like pretty much disables you until you stand up again. You want to avoid that as much as possible. This little strat here is just so I can keep high jump for after this fight. It's useful for example, this room coming up here, and a little bit in the next level. Alright, I'm gonna take the maximum tomato. As you can see, the game sort of freezes, so normally to save like a little bit of time, you just forego getting that maximum tomato. So in this game, besides the maximum tomato sitting around, you get like recovered back to full health after bosses. Yeah, it might not seem this way, but high jump does move a little bit faster than running. Whoops. Nice lag. Lag eats a lot of inputs in this game. He'll stand here, slash, he'll hit me, and then with the double star, I can kill Bonkers. Bonkers actually has like slightly more health than the damage of a double star, so we need that one slash at the beginning. And I think this doesn't really happen in later Kirby games, but in some of the earlier ones, double stars do a little bit more damage than 2 single stars. This level, you want to keep hammer the entire way through, but there's so many enemies in the way that it's really easy to lose it. Sword Knights, like this guy right here, one of the most annoying enemies in the game because of how random they are, and also how powerful they are. That room right there is really easy to lose your ability. So now we've kept hammer all the way through 3-6, and so we can use it really effectively on this boss right here. So this Shine and Bright, one of these will randomly become vulnerable. Alright. Some people like to guess and wait in front of one of them, but on average it's the same, I guess. Yeah, one small thing to know about these Star Rod grabs, you want to try to do it in the center of the room if possible, because otherwise Kirby will walk really slowly back to the middle. Yeah, pretty much everything causes lag in this game, so just have to minimize it as much as possible. Like, if you jump, that causes lag. There are 4 different kinds of attacks that you can do with UFO. There's like a beam attack, a laser attack, and two different types of star attacks. All depends on how long you charge it up for. And someone pointed out to me that like it's probably just like literally beam, laser, single star, double star to save like the programmers the effort of implementing more abilities. Alright. There are a couple places in this level where you can lose tornado, so hopefully I don't have to deal with it. Yeah, if you touch these spikes, you pretty much instantly lose it. I want to try to get both these guys in 2 tornadoes. Alright, nice. They take 5 hits each, so it's a little bit tight to get essentially like 7 hits on the second tornado. So I kept it, so that's good. Should be okay for the rest of the time of holding tornado. So this is 80%. 100% would involve hitting these random switches scattered throughout the different levels. Some of them are just like well hidden. Other times it's just like you need a certain ability to, for example, light a fuse for a cannon. But the switches unlock certain areas that you see on this overworld, but you don't actually have to visit any of them, you just need to hit the switches. Alright, this is a scary level. Just simple tornado stuff here. So if everything goes right, this is actually the only time use wheel in the entire run. It's pretty much just useful for this one section here. Its movement is actually not as good as tornadoes. Right, this is the scary part. Nice. Both the setup, the mix is like another 4-frame window, and also the setup for inhaling both those enemies is surprisingly tight. Probably harder than the mix itself. So I'm really glad I got that. If I was slightly too early, That would have gotten a completely useless ability for that boss and would have wasted like 30 seconds. Alright, coming up, this is one of my favorite tricks. If you inhale 2 sword enemies, the first ability will always be Fireball, and you can actually buffer the first ability. In later games, you can't buffer it, like for example, Amazing Mirror Squeaks one, but in this one, in Nightmare Dreamland, you can buffer the first ability. Alright, that's an annoying enemy. Sometimes you gotta improvise a little bit, because they move in ways you don't expect them to. This is a really annoying room where the Bronto bursts are just dropping down from the sky randomly. The path I take is pretty consistent, but sometimes I still get screwed a little bit. I should actually explain how this out of bounds works. If you run over a 1 tile gap with, and you crouch at the right, oh no. I got it and then went back in bounds. If you crouch at the right time, then you'll clip out of bounds. And for some weird reason, I can probably just hand wave it and say it has to do with subpixels. It only works when you have an ability that doesn't change your appearance. So for example, if I had UFO, I wouldn't be able to do it, or if I had sword or hammer. I'm at 2 health, this is pretty bad. But Kirby sort of turns a little bit orange when he has an ability. Just like some weird thing in this game, and only this game. This is Krakow. This part here, most of these platforms are separated by the full length of high jump, but some of them I need to cancel a little bit. In Nightmare and Dreamland, the remake, I'm gonna play it safe here. I think all of them are not the full length, so you have to be constantly canceling. Oops. And also Nightmare and Dreamland, because canceling high jump does damage, this fight is actually a lot quicker. That fight went okay. Didn't take damage, that's all I really care about. Ah. Finicky positioning for that, in my opinion. Ah. Okay, whatever. So Ball's the first ability, but I wanted Tornado, which is the one right after. It's okay. I got one of the mixes, so that's all I care about. Like the more important one, and the harder one. So because I actually don't know the old way of doing it, which was with Ball, I'm gonna run over here to this museum. So these museums are scattered, and they contain abilities. This one happens to contain Tornado, and it'll actually come up later for real. Nah. I was trying to preserve the momentum of the Tornado as I jumped in the water. So normally, like, the Ball mix was actually correct, and you'd go through this part without an ability, I think, or with Ball. But I really just want to do Tornado strats, so I'm just gonna take the time loss and get it. Alright, this is a really easy mini-boss fight. I actually got the harder pattern, which is still not hard. Just spam tornado into bonkers. Goal game seems to have been going okay. I haven't hit that pesky third frame yet, I think. Yeah, in this game, going down slopes is... Whoa, 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 no. It's pretty fast. And of course, we're going to preserve it in the same way as we would a slide. But going up slopes is extremely slow. I don't know. To me, like, the fact that Kirby sort of just crawls up these upward slopes is just, like, really irritating to me. A little bit of a damage boost. One thing to know about this fight is that these enemies swinging their axes, they can break the stars if you spit at them, but if you do it quickly enough, it doesn't matter at all. Like, you get them right in between those swinging cycles. This is the first real ball movement. For ball, you go up and down really quickly, but you also, I think you also preserve whatever horizontal speed you're moving at before. So I try to activate it right as I finish sliding. And I get that sliding speed sort of for free. There's actually a little bit of a shortcut through this part. You're actually supposed to go through this other, like, really long water room. And it's actually where the switch for this level is hidden, but since it's 80%, we just take the shortcut and not even worry about the switch. Alright, so now we go to the museum for real. Like, this is what I intended to do. And this is actually just like a month old. Before you would keep ball here, and you go through it with ball. Whoa, what the? Alright, that was very strange. Gonna do my baby strats. And it's coming up as what you might call like the 5-5 clip, or as passing people call it, like the acute angle clip. Basically, like an acute angle like the roof here, you can just clip straight through it. And there are a bunch of places where you can soft lock here, but luckily I avoided all of them. And it saves going through that room and going through that area with the mini-boss. I think the acute angle clip was, that one in particular was discovered by Link Dead in, like, I want to say mid 2014. So Link Dead, who's known more for Super Mario World runs, according to Controller Head, who was a long time runner of this game, came into the game and got world record in 3 weeks, in his words. Wow, I didn't realize I finished 5-6. So normally this, the previous level and this boss, we're done with hammer, but with tornado it's still pretty fast. And so having tornado for the next 2 levels is really useful, especially this first one here. So all that time going into the museum, taking a slower boss kill, really pays off in this level and the one after. Oh, pretty laggy. Oh yeah, Super Mario Land 2. Yeah, Controller Head was pretty much the first person to do runs of what was then called glitchless before, after UFO glitch was discovered. In an attempt to make things more fun. Because UFO glitch, what it turns out to be, is like UFO glitch is this frame perfect glitch. But once you have it, movement is simpler than, like for example, a no major glitches category. And so really, like, the run boils down to like a couple like really nerve-wracking parts where you have to hit difficult mixes and like this frame perfect trick. And then you sort of just coast with UFO for the rest of the run. And then a bunch of like different out-of-bounds methods were discovered, and so now then it was called like any % no UFO glitch, and then it was later called like renamed to any % no major glitches when I think people were able to do the credits warp RTA. Yeah, so even though the name, like, no major glitches comes from Link to the Past, like, out of bounds in this game is not as powerful as it is in that game. Yeah, the main thing about World 6 is keeping Tornado literally the whole way through. So we got Tornado from that museum back in World 5. We're going to try to keep it pretty much until the last level of this world. There are a couple of Scarfies here. I recently came up with this like little strat to consistently avoid them. But yeah, blowing up a Scarfie causes like a ton of lag, so you want to avoid it as much as possible. Alright, this is probably the most difficult out of bounds. Yeah, you see that explosion right there. The most difficult out of bounds in the run, in my opinion. Because there's big potential for time loss. Alright, now I need to navigate through this little corner right here. It's not that precise, but sometimes, like, it's a little bit off and it runs over. Because if you clip out, like, back and bounce downwards, then you have to go around the room normally, and that wastes a lot of time. Yeah, coconuts, I think, are implemented kind of interesting. So they're supposed to fall and explode on you when you pass underneath them, but they also fall if you pass above them. I guess it's probably just like a simple like horizontal position check for them to fall. Alright, 6-6. This is a scary level. So we're finally gonna drop the tornado here. This will be I think the last time we used tornado in the run. But now we need to pick up one of these UFOs, and they move around very randomly, and other UFOs can run into you, and both that UFO and your ability get lost. Luckily, the patterns there were okay. And like UFO for the rest of this level is like really, really necessary. So for that Frosty, it was just like one charge shot. For this Meta Knight's fight, I'm gonna wait. There's like a set order that you should do this in, and I messed it up like 3 times. That's okay. That's pretty good. I didn't take damage at all in that world. So now I'm at full health for Meta Knight. Try to swipe at him as he's coming down. This is a very random fight. I don't know, in my opinion, the conditions are a little bit unfair. Meta Knight has so much more health. This pretends to be like a fair sword fight, but he doesn't attack that often. And it's very random because not only does Meta Knight move around randomly, but he can also randomly block attacks. And luckily that fight went pretty smoothly. Alright, 7-1. We're gonna use laser just to clear out a bunch of enemies to reduce lag. Oop, get up there. And we're actually gonna like sort of create this one tile gap to run over. Yeah, really, really laggy room. Like certain enemy attacks just lag way more than others. For example, Beam and Spark. And sometimes the lag like hinders your out of bounds attempts. Sometimes it actually helps because it like makes the window of hitting it wider. I'd say most of the time it hinders. Right, this is 7-2. This is a boss rush. We're just gonna skip to the midway point. This is sort of the same principle as the previous Bonkers fight, but the AI is a little bit more aggressive. So instead of swiping it, like swinging his hammer at you, he'll just run into you. But pretty much the same. Here we're gonna try to wait for the turtle to charge us, and then we'll get 3 quick hits this way. There are a bunch of other patterns that the turtle can do, like jump at you, which is not desirable. Like this kind of jump. But luckily he attacked right after. The turtle is actually probably the trickiest in terms of timing. The one after that is pretty simple. This line we want the lion to jump, and then we fall down. Oh, okay, die. It's pretty hard to get a read on the lion, so that's why we float at the top and wait for it to jump. So that actually went okay. I didn't take any unintentional damage, which is good. That level can really troll you, especially in the remake of this game. That is like a really big like bottleneck. Lots of runs are lost there. Oops, whatever. So this is the room where the implementation of slopes is really bad. You can actually soft lock yourself by doing that acute angle clip and then clipping into like one of those side blocks and getting stuck. Ideally, you're supposed to have hammer, so you can sort of clear out all these by just swinging the hammer. But I don't. First of all, I don't have hammer, and even if I did, I'm just gonna take the safe baby way of using the invincibility candy. This first room is a complete mess without hammer. A lot of random enemy movement, especially these ball enemies. No! Lag everywhere. Whatever. I'm just gonna clear out some of them while I'm moving. It's a little bit slower to do it this way, but I feel a lot safer this way. We're gonna get fireball. Yeah, for some reason this ability is renamed to burning later on. Not really sure why. Oops. This is just gonna help us a little bit for the next room. We're just gonna use Crash. Mini boss instantly dies. So in this room, you have these like I don't even know how you would explain it, but these passages where the air pushes you up and passages where it pushes you down. And we're just gonna try to dance and inhale and spit as many enemies as possible. Unfortunately, I got burned there. Fireball again. In this next level, which kind of like a reimagining of Kirby's Dream Land. Really a test of a couple different fireball things. I just thought the in this game, like the palette swap is really cool. So all this fire stuff is routed because you're left pretty vulnerable at the end of it. Yeah, this part always irritates me. You can destroy that coconut while you're going up, but oh no, I'm dead. Dang, that was stupid. that was like 100% my fault. You can actually do one more like little out of bounds right there, near the place where I died. It actually helps a lot for that room, in my opinion. We're just gonna vanilla the rest of this. Unfortunately, then you have to show off this tiny little thing with Fireball where you can rise faster than Kirby's floating by repeatedly fireballing into a wall. Oh well. Alright, I'm just gonna reset. Put myself back at full health. Just gonna go back into this level and grab Ball for DD. Ball is really effective for attacking. It's actually really powerful, but nowadays not used that much. It used to be used in that area where I tried and failed to do a tornado mix. It was quite a while back. Its movement just simply isn't as good as Tornado. Alright, so this was a terrible DD fight, but the idea is to use ball and like right at the edge of his sprite to do damage, and really I didn't do any of that. Yeah, it's actually like pretty precise to repeatedly hit DD while not taking any damage yourself. This is the Nightmare Orb. The pattern is pretty much, I would say pretty much fixed, with like small variations. I'm just gonna play it sort of safe and not take too much damage. And so now the final boss, Nightmare, is kind of the same. He'll sort of appear in random places, but the patterns are pretty much set. There's like a little bit of an audio cue for when to do that. So now third attack, he's going to be floating in the air. Fourth attack back here. The attack will be in the air as well. Nice. This is actually quite a good Nightmare fight. Ooh, I missed. Time. Okay, whoops. Yeah, that was time. That was Kirby's Adventure. Pretty active game right now. The top 3 runners are active in the game. But yeah, if you're interested, you can hop in the Kirby Discord and, of course, ask questions. 4707. That's that's okay, I guess. Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to the old runners like Controller Head, Link Dead, Hartwisen, etc., and new runners like Race Out and Rod for pushing this game down. For a long time the game was at like 45 minutes, and now it's getting close to 43 minutes. Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Excellent run. We'll go ahead and get set up for the next run, which is